run.
Should we hit start button?
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, welcome everyone to our episode of West Valley Hot Topics. And this month we're talking about restaurant and retail development, specifically in the city of Surprise. But that's a topic that's hot on everyone's radar because we go out to dinner on the weekends and we can never get into restaurants. There's always a pile up. And about 2017, back in 2017, we did a restaurant demo day where we did a survey of West Valley residents. What do you want to eat? How much are you willing to spend? And we went down to 24th and Camelback and we pitched to restaurant brokers and restaurant owners as to why they should develop it in the West Valley. And Scott was part of that, that presentation pitch back then. And now we have Josh investing, and so excited about that. And Mayor Hall with the City of Surprise is the mayor of a city of 160,000 residents, hungry residents.
Right.
And so they want to know what's happening in downtown. When am I going to get to eat? When am I going to stop waiting in lines?
Right.
They're bombarding you, right? So, which is a good thing.
Yes.
So, Mayor, why don't you kick things off and tell us a little bit about, what you're hearing from residents?
Okay, mainly what we're hearing is they want more variety, and they want walkability between experiences. When they go to a restaurant, it's walkable to a theater or whatever. We've got a couple of real activity centers in Surprise called Posada and City Center, and that's where they're really focused. What's going to go in there where I can walk, go in between restaurants, have some entertainment, etc. And that's what I've been hearing from residents a lot. And our economic development department works very closely with Posada and the city center to make sure we're in alignment. We share information about the market whenever we hear things. So, yeah.
Yeah. And you have a restaurant survey going on right now.
Yeah, we
too,
do.
Right?
We do. We had one. We did one this last year. I was just looking at it just to see it. We got 6 out of the 10 retailers
Nice.
that the residents asked for coming to Surprise.
So you're doing your job. You'll get reelected.
We're doing our job. That's right. What have you done for me lately? Right? And we're working on the restaurants, but we're in the midst of doing a new one, an updated one right now. And that should be done by the end of the month. And we'll share it with Scott and Josh so they can see what our residents are thinking. So, yeah.
And that's super helpful as a developer, seeing what the residents want, because we can take those to the tenants, and your economic development department is, I think, the best in town by far.
Thank you.
They're awesome.
Yeah.
Good deal. So Scott, you've been working in the City of Surprise and working for the City of Surprise, as we both did. So what's going on in Surprise Center, and what are you seeing around that area? I know I was at the State of the City last week, or the week before, Mayor, and I was surprised at how many, I was shocked at how many residents came out to that event. And so they're looking for something to do.
Right.
They're looking for that activity. That place was packed and it's beautiful.
Yes.
So Scott, that's right up the street from you guys, right?
It's all part of the same city center downtown long-term urban area for a trade area that someday is going to exceed 1 million people. We all know what the growth trajectory looks like, and Surprise will be the beneficiary, in my view, the driving force in the Northwest Valley for the economy and entertainment and lifestyle and quality of life initiatives. Not to mention the education that's on site with Ottawa University, 1,000 students there. And we have, so at City Center, we've seen a tremendous amount of activity, using rough numbers, about 2,000 residential units of varying types, all high density, both ownership and for rent are in process or under construction right now. We're very excited about that type of activity because our view is in a property the size of downtown Phoenix. And if you think about it in terms of how urban something that size can be, this should be a property that 15 to 20,000 people are living on, and 50,000 people are going there to work every day. And 100,000 people are enjoying on a weekly basis. So that's the scale of what we're dealing with, and the mayor and economic development, and the council have really bought into that vision, and I think we're all working together on it.
So there's also multifamily around that area. So obviously that feeds into, in terms of densities, you need those numbers to drive what's going on, you know, what you develop. Why don't you both maybe talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think we were talking, there's 6,000 units in planning on multifamily in the city, and they need more. We're working on at Prasada, you know, only like 500, but I think the city center is really where that density can happen. And for us, like our tenants, our retailers and restaurants, they need employees. And, you know, right now they're having to drive 20, 30 minutes, which isn't sustainable. And so we're super excited to bring some of this multifamily online.
Right. Exactly.
So did you have a presentation when we? Okay.
Josh has some
So,
slides.
all right. So anything else that you want to focus on Surprise Center before we go into Josh's
Well,
presentation?
I mean, I could talk about it ad nauseum, so that's.
Well, I would say, so a couple of things, like in the last 10 years, we've seen the household income in Surprise was, I think, 57,000. And today it's in the 70s.
Right.
You compare that to Buckeye, that's been a similar trajectory. Looking at kind of the opposite side of the valley, Queen Creek has gone from 57 to 100,000.
Wow.
And Gilbert was, I think, roughly in the 60s, and now they're in the 90s. And then, so you kind of look at, hey, not that we're trying to replicate what they're doing, but you look at the restaurant, the dining, the entertainment options, and you say, okay, well, Surprise is on that path, but you know,
Right.
we're not quite there. Where like Gilbert, you look at the depth of options because you need disposable income. And to support all of these restaurants and entertainment options, you have to drive disposable income, and it's growing. It's steadily going on Surprise. And now that's why you're seeing all of this interest, whether it be Prasada and, you know, what we're working on at City Center, which I think is a great combination of restaurants and entertainment options. It's just it's taken time. It wasn't ready 10 years ago.
Right. So Scott, talk a little bit about what you've seen in terms of how retail has changed in terms of the need. What did we look for, you know, 10, 15, 20 years ago? And what are we looking for today? Different age group, right?
It's a little bit age. I mean, incomes obviously are critical, but really what we've seen is the format has changed. You know, in 2006, we had planned a 1 million square foot outdoor mall, which was a very, very cool concept and would be a big challenge to have sitting there right now if we'd been successful in getting it out of the ground. So that same regional impact that used to be a 1 million square foot mall, our view is now it's 150 to 200,000 square feet of the right type of entertainment, retail, restaurant options in the right setting. So our focus on walkability, on creating truly horizontal and vertical mixed use within the city center is what we think is going to drive a lot of people knowing that this is a great lifestyle. All the pieces of Surprise are there. You've got higher education, you've got government, you've got great recreation programs, there's great tourism programs, golf is tremendous. And so driving that next piece of that entertainment and that walkability where people have all these different options, they can live in a very suburban scenario, almost a rural scenario, or they can be in an urban walkable downtown. I think that's what we're striving towards. And that's really what Josh brings as a key piece of that on the next phase of retail, where we continue to drive that idea of walkability on Elm Street, which becomes that walkable destination.
And Mayor, this seems to be consistent with what you're hearing from your residents, no
Yes.
matter what age range they're in
That's right.
or stage of home they're in, they still want that
That's
same
exactly right.
getting together.
We hear
concept.
it from the college students at Ottawa, and we hear it from the retirement community in Sun City Grand and Sun Village and Arizona Traditions. Okay, so it's the whole spectrum of ages.
Everybody wants that same.
They all want the same thing. They want it downtown. They want to walk. They want walkability. They like water features. That's another thing that, you know, that's in the plan, right, Scott?
Yes.
And so that's another piece of it. But yeah, you're right. It's the whole age group, all the age groups.
And the timing is perfect because if you would have built 1.6 million there, and then if Red and Macerich would have built indoor mall at Prasada,
Right,
like those would be eyesores.
right.
And so the retail has changed so fundamentally in the last 10 years where hey, the smaller soft goods users have kind of gone away, and so it's more, you know, your discount retailers, and then, you know, groups like Kohl's, and you're really focused on food and beverage now and entertainment. And that shift is changed. I mean, centers like Kierland or Scottsdale Quarter, those are destinations. They pull from the whole valley. Those won't survive long term in smaller areas. Even with 1 million people, they need millions of people to be successful.
But they do have like a black, what is it?
White House
Black
Black
Market store. So
And they have York.
are you bringing one of those to either one of these areas, Posada or Surprise
Well,
Center?
and we hope we can one day. I think a lot of it is what we're doing for Posada, which is a lot of soft goods. You know, the tenants will follow each other. So now when our lineup opens, they start saying, oh, well, these guys are doing really well. So
Right.
it builds on itself.
Exactly.
And I think there are 2 points to that. One is I want to build off of what the mayor has said and talk about community, and really what Surprise has done so well is creating a community feel. And our view is the city center is the place where all different communities can experience life together. We want meeting places for everybody. So I think that gets to the multi-generational piece. The other piece is, you bring up Kierland Commons, you know, the reality is that's about a 35-acre project, and we have 640 acres here. So when people think in terms of, we want that walkable downtown, well, that the Kierland-esque, the walkable retail, that's a really small piece of it. It's probably less than 10% of the overall property, but it has such a big impact, which again is why partnering with Josh, we think is such a key piece to having that impactful developer bring in the right tenants in the right format and set the stage for that next piece of walkability and lifestyle.
So talk a little bit about that partnership, because you're doing your thing in Posada and you're doing your thing in Surprise Center. And then all of a sudden I'm reading that you're partnering up, and I'm like, okay, I need
Monopoly.
You're taking over.
They're 2 way different projects. When you look at Posada, it's your power center. You know, you've got your discount retail, you have an entertainment option, mostly fast casual restaurants. We have, you know, a specialty grocery store. When we think of city center, we think of entertainment anchoring it. You need different experiences for restaurants, maybe small businesses. How do we incorporate office? We were talking before it started about, hey, like, you know, an industrious WeWork type environment.
Yep.
Like, you know, we want to build a place where people they hang out, they stay, they live, like a real work, live, play situation.
You know, you talked about the numbers in terms of household income driving the tenant's desire or interest in going to a certain area. The numbers that I see, okay, I see the household incomes. I've known that for a long time. I've believed it for a long time because I've seen it. But the numbers that I see that I'm curious as to how this plays into it is the wait list time. Because again, Friday, Saturday night, and I get it, it's the weekend, but I mean, there are restaurants that I drive, Cheddar's, for example. There's always a wait. It does not matter what time you're driving by that restaurant, what day of the week, what time of the day, there's always people standing outside.
Yep.
So it's one of the restaurants, and for me, and I hear this a lot, if I have to wait X amount, I'm just gonna do takeout or I'm gonna do something different. So do they ever look at that type of?
Of course, and
activity?
it's a small world where we'll talk. I mean, it's a small community, so we can figure out, hey, these tenants are doing that. There's technology where we track cell phones, and so you can see the traffic in and out of restaurants, and you can compare them on a national basis. So I can point to, like, I can tell you this Costco is the number 5 Costco in the state of Arizona based on cell phone visits. And so we're able to take this data and then show it to the tenants. But a lot of it, it's like you get the first one and then everyone else follows.
Yeah.
And so right now it's about giving them they didn't have a project to land in. So, you know, we gave some options at Posada, and we're very limited in our sit-down dining options. And now we have City Center getting off the ground, and we have a very special plan for that. And how do we attract tenants that want to be there using that data? You said, hey, look at drive on a Friday night, and restaurateurs, they'll do that. But it's also about the guy saying, hey, I'm doing really well. You guys need to open a location.
Totally. Yeah.
Right. The other thing is too, Senator, you know, 303 changed the world in this valley.
Yeah.
Okay, because you live in a Buckeye and you want to go to one of Josh's restaurants in Posada, You're 15 minutes away.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing. Okay, same thing with North Peoria.
Right?
Okay.
Right.
North Peoria, it's easy. Boom, down
Yeah.
to 303, you're 15, 20 minutes max from Estancia, Trilogy, all that.
Yeah.
Okay, and so the idea is to have different unique sales propositions, you know, in locations where people will travel to. Like Josh was saying, making it more of a destination, not only surprise people, but Sun City and Sun City West, and Peoria, Goodyear,
Right.
Buckeye. It all plays in. So,
Yeah, that whole festival area, I'm
Yeah.
sure, really shops and eats.
oh, they all do. Yeah, they shop at Surprise.
Yeah.
And I think that fits well what the mayor is saying about the long-term strategy, not just from a retail and destination perspective, but also from an employment economic development perspective. Surprise is very well positioned between what TSMC is doing. We all know the $12 billion phase one and the impact that's going to, actually, we don't know what the impact of that is.
We're still trying to
figure it out, get our arms around it, because it is so fundamentally different. And then what's happening on the 303 in terms of employment and all the activity from I-10 north, and then you go out to I-10 and 85 and all the activity that's happening in Buckeye. So Surprise is well positioned to take advantage of the major employment and the new economy, but also City Center. What we're trying to do is preserve land for those corporate campus opportunities, because if you don't have the land, you can't land them. But if we create the right atmosphere with Josh, with our multifamily, with the university, with the government center, with medical care, all those pieces are part of the plan, and most of them are under construction or already there. Then we believe that the corporate campus opportunities, when they're in full swing, will take advantage of those amenities and that culture that's being created in Surprise.
And you know about, because you used to work for the city of Surprise, so you know about our tennis center
Oh, yeah.
and our baseball stadium. And the activity in that baseball stadium is year round.
Right.
Okay, when spring training's not there, there's rookie leagues that are there, or there's college teams that are there. Well, they all draw people, like Oregon State, for instance, coming, and Gonzaga's coming for the baseball tournament. Well, the Oregon people come in mass to watch Oregon State play baseball. It's amazing. They travel so well. So guess what? Those become customers.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
And that's what's so neat about City Center versus Prasada. I mean, Prasada is going to be beautiful, but City Center, there's going to be so much walkability. The hotels are right there across the street. They don't have to get in their car, and they can just walk to the entertainment.
It had been a little bit before I had been to a spring training game in Surprise. And a few years ago, I went to one and there were cabs everywhere. And I'm like, what? Am I in downtown Phoenix? What is going on? It was crazy. So I totally hear what you're saying. And it does have that vibe,
Yes.
especially during spring training with all those people. So you build restaurants, you build all those other things, you will attract people because they're already close by.
Right.
So,
And the tennis facility also.
yes.
I was just at the tennis facility on Tuesday with a group that is studying growth cities. It was 12 people from Anthem. They wanted to study Surprise. What's going on in Surprise?
Wow.
So one of the places we toured was the tennis facility, and they had a really good tournament going on, NCAA tournament. And it was just, the place was just active, and it was so exciting to these people coming from all over, walking by with their tennis rackets, getting ready to play. You know what I mean?
You're on ESPN.
Yeah.
Surprise is on ESPN.
No, it was really fun, so the tennis center, that's kind of a quiet demand generator.
Yes.
Okay, versus the baseball stadium, you go, well, the baseball stadium, but tennis facility too, it's a big one.
So are you getting tournaments through?
Oh, yeah, definitely,
Okay.
big time. Our tennis director is very well connected with the United States Tennis Association.
Okay.
Okay, so they give him first dibs on a lot of tournaments. Senior tournaments, you get a lot of senior tournaments. Okay, old people like me, still play.
Yeah, that's how they stay young,
That's right. And then the pickleball,
right?
it's right next to it.
Right.
And that's a whole nother type of people. you know what I
Right.
mean?
That course probably busier. I'm on that
Whew,
course.
yeah. Anyway, so
Awesome. Good deal. All right, so you've got some visuals for us?
Yeah, I was just gonna walk
Great.
through Prasada and some pictures of Prasada, and then just City Center, just a conceptual rendering. Obviously, Surprise is our West Valley's gem. And then just on spending on the next slide, it talks about $2,500 a month is the average household, what the buying power is out in Surprise, which we look at a lot because that's the money that they can spend at.
Disposable income.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And then Prasada, this is a view from what's called Alexandria Street. We'll have a cluster of about 7 restaurants. The idea here is real walkability. Unfortunately, we don't have a water feature.
Not yet.
That we're gonna save that for city center.
Okay.
You know, we gotta have everyone go up there.
That's right.
And then of that, I think the next one has a site plan. So that kind of restaurant clusters in the middle, right where Alexandria and Prasada Parkway meet. And the idea here is that's walkability. So you have 6 restaurants and a 7th. Cooper's Hawk is signed, which Cooper Hawk Winery is, they've got a chain out of Chicago. They've got a handful of locations here. We have Barrio Queen signed, Oso, obviously if you guys are from Phoenix, you know Oso Brewery. And then we are at lease with 3 other sit-down concepts. And we've got a couple LOIs on the last space. So there's been so much interest. And I think that's what makes our JV partnership really good too, is because we know everybody in the market. We're able to say, yeah, this is a really good fit for this project, or hey, we've been working with we can kind of feed off of each other depending on what the tenant wants. And right there, you can see from the map, like there's not much orange. Orange means it's still technically available. Everything else is either signed or at lease. So we're talking 700,000 square feet. We're 98% leased. That's the demand in Surprise.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
Cynthia, do you know about Fat Cats?
Yes, I heard
Okay.
about it.
That's down there in the bottom left hand.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
right there in the left hand.
So Fat Cats is
Yeah.
theater, bowling, arcade. I think the great thing about Fat Cats is through COVID, when we started working on this project, everyone went into lockdown. So it was a great time to start trying to sell a vision. And Fat Cats was with us through the whole period. And they, where theaters that were just theaters have struggled to some extent.
Yeah.
Fat Cats has really done well because they have the bowling, they have the arcade. And so they've done really well. We're super excited. They're under construction right now.
And that's on the corner of Waddell?
So that's
No.
Sweetwater, the
Sweetwater.
303.
that's
So
it
they'll be
there.
right up on the
Gotcha.
303. When you go up and down the 303 right now, you can see everything from Sprouts to TJ Maxx. Slabs are poured. So we are, Hayden, our contractor, is doing a killer job. We're cruising along, hoping to get some tenants open this year.
Awesome.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
I said this year.
Yeah, that would be
Okay. I mean, that's.
not sleeping a lot. But, so those are just a couple renderings to give you an idea though, the type of project we want to do here and also bringing that into city center. And then there's one more page of renderings of Oso, Barrio Queen, and then another tenant that we're at lease with. So very upscale project. And then obviously Surprise City Center, as I think Scott was talking, eventually the trade area is going to be 1 million people. Today, I think we're at 297. I think the next slide shows. 296 trade area population and 87,000 daytime employees, which is also very important for restaurants because
Right.
a lot of restaurants are open for lunch.
Right.
And you need that lunch business.
So with the lunch business, somebody else pointed this out to me that we typically think of the lunch crowd being the business crowd, but there are a lot of different demographics. There's a
Right.
lot of, moms
Mhm.
that are at home and different groups like that. And obviously the senior community, they go out to lunch all the
Yes,
time. So it is a different dynamic, but we still do have a lunch crowd.
Well, and what's interesting about the senior population is that there's a great bimodal population in the Surprise trade area. And what we've heard from the restaurants, and we have, I think, 12 different restaurants at City Center currently. It's a good solid lineup, but we're hoping to take it to the next level with Josh, is that it's great because the restaurants can do 2 turns early and 2 turns late at their tables because you get the older population goes out a little
Right.
earlier. And then the
Exactly.
families and younger folks are going kind of the next wave. So getting 4 turns of a table a night at a restaurant is a really positive thing. And that's why their numbers have always been really good at Surprise.
And then just this is an early conceptual rendering on the last slide but we're working on it. The idea though is that's Elm Street, so Bell Road on the top, and then you have Elm Street, and Elm Street is where we're trying to activate. And so we've got a lot of ideas. I think in the next 90 days, we'll have a pretty good idea of what our first phase, which will be the eastern quadrant that abuts where In and Out is, closer to Civic Center Parkway, and then we'll work our way to the west.
But the other thing that's happening at the same time is we're in escrow now on a property right on Bullard, just on the south side of Elm, for a 320 four-story Gerben elevator load type product. It's a luxury residential deal. So and they liked that site because of our vision on Elm Street and because of what the city's already done on Bullard. And so there's going to be some reimagining of, I think, how Bullard works and how that ties into Elm Street. And there's a big art installation the city is commissioned that's going to be right on Bullard as a part of that apartment deal. So there's a lot of different stuff all coming into that area at the same time.
The green there on Elm Centra is Marriott Spring Hill Suites.
Okay.
That's, they purchased the land, it closed on it, they just got built.
Right.
Exciting.
It is.
Awesome.
Very exciting.
Good deal. So we talked about disposable income. We talked about the partnership. So in terms of, again, demographics, specifically with the university impact, those demographics, obviously they're a little bit different. So how do those play into the types of retail that you attract or that you assign to that area?
So Ottawa has about 1,000 students right now, so that will be good for city center and obviously for Rusada as well. But I think what it helps to attract is the hit brands, and like the older generation always wants to be like the younger generation, and so I think figuring out where
So it's not just me. My daughter tells me that, she's like, "Mom, this is mine." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
But you go to I was in Black Rock Coffee today out at Waddell, the 303.
Do
And
well, don't they?
yeah, and there was people in their 70s or 80s,
Yeah.
and there was people in their 20s.
Right.
And I think that's what makes Surprise so exciting and like so much opportunity is everyone, it's a melting pot
Yeah.
of generations.
Yeah.
And so I think the university definitely helps. I think the big communities like Sterling Grove, driving those incomes and disposable dollars is a much bigger impact.
Right. So tell us a little bit about Sterling Grove. That has to be an exciting community that came
Oh,
online and what it means for the whole mix of everything.
Well, Toll Brothers is the builder.
Mhm.
They are they're a class act.
Right.
Okay, they're just known, they're just classy. And they built a model complex there. It's unbelievable, 14 models. You seen it, Centra?
Yes, several times.
Gee.
Sarah. Several times.
And then the 18-hole golf course designed by Jack
Yep.
Nicklaus. And they just opened their community center, which is
Okay,
gorgeous.
that I have not seen.
Okay, you need to see that. It's
Okay.
gorgeous. And but they've sold 500 lots. They've got 2,200 total. So they'll be there for another 3 or 4 years probably. When they first envisioned it, they said it was a 10-year deal,
Mhm.
but they've shortened it because, well, what's happened is we've gotten a lot of buyers from California, Oregon, and Washington. That's where most of their buyers are. And they're bringing large equities,
Sure.
paying cash for houses, you know.
Driving up the prices
Yeah.
for the rest of us.
And every time I turn around, somebody's talking about, hey, my boss just bought a home in Sterling Grove. Like the COO just bought a home there. She's the CEO of a credit union, a big credit union here in the Phoenix market. And she decided to move to Surprise because of Sterling Grove. And she's got a lot of disposable income, but that's typical.
Yeah.
When you go out there and meet those people, it's very well educated, they have high incomes, and they have pretty high demands too about what they want. you
Well,
know?
they have beautiful homes if they're buying in there. I mean, those
Yeah.
homes are incredible.
It really is. And so, yeah, they're just a great company. They do what they say. So it's just, we're just so happy to have them in our community. And there's a couple more that are coming out north Surprise that are going to be almost to that quality.
So that's kind of a question that we got is, I don't remember the planning area of Surprise anymore, but I know it's pretty big. We have
110 square miles.
Right.
Approximately.
5 special planning areas.
Yeah.
Any plans on annexing any more in, or are you like done?
No, there'll be some more
Oh,
annexation.
really?
Yes.
I know you're trying to annex
See, you
Lake
know,
Pleasant.
You know what we think, now this is just of course, this is way in the future, you know, but we think Highway 74 is gonna be a big transportation player in the future, connecting the 17 to 16.
Yeah.
With
Agreed.
TSMC,
Agreed.
don't you agree, Scott?
100%.
Mhm.
And so it's a little two-lane road right now,
Right.
okay? But I think it's gonna have, and that's in our planning area. All the way to the north of that. So, yeah, I think there's more annexation in the future. So,
So, and then Josh is gonna be building up there.
Yeah, I'm excited. That's like one of the prettiest areas.
Up there.
Rolling, you got the rolling mountains.
I know, it's
Um,
great.
But hopefully construction costs come down before.
Yeah, let's.
Because
I know.
I think on Sterling Grove, they would probably build the 22 or 1,700 that they have, but it costs and getting concrete and,
Exactly.
you know, at Prasada, we built our own concrete plant. So we make our own concrete on site, so we're not waiting.
Yeah.
Because if we knew that, we would never build on time. And I was just on one of our
Isn't
job
that smart,
sites.
Centra?
Yes, I think I
Smart.
heard one other person say that too.
And then in Buckeye, well, you have to have the scale
Yeah,
to do
sure,
it.
sure.
And in Buckeye, I was just on one of our job sites outside of Verado, and they're getting rationed on grout.
I know.
So they went from like, I don't know, 16, like they got like halved again. And so I'm like, well, we're not making progress. So all these jobs, it's taking so much longer.
Mhm.
And so it's a very difficult time, and you know, it doesn't seem to be getting better anytime soon. But luckily, like we've got great partners at the city, you know, with getting inspections and this, and
Right.
so, you know, your staff's been amazing to work with, and so it's been a trying time. It's been a very trying time.
Time is money, right? So, and you mentioned that earlier, is that the
Yes.
team just, you know, you're catching the fish and they know how to gut it internally, so.
Right.
it's in knowledge guys.
Right.
Anyway.
Especially the developers.
Chop it up. Okay, and I remember, you know, you were on a webinar sometime last year and you guys were talking about the price of lumber. So how has that changed? Has it gotten better? Like, there was gas prices, the new problem child that we're dealing with. Are we
I mean,
still dealing with
I'm
that?
not a good fortune teller because I've been wrong on
Yeah,
pricing,
me too.
but I think our prices just in general, I think we're up like 30% in like 6 or 7 months.
Okay, so it's
It's
still
getting-
climbing.
Yeah, it's been, hopefully now we've hit a place, because now it's getting to a point where it doesn't make sense.
Right.
Right.
Like, we're stopping new stuff, like we can't do these new projects, and you know, rents can only go so high, and now you'll start to see tenants push back. And a lot of the challenges is like when you sign leases, you're signing leases, especially with like a big industrial tenant or a retail tenant, it's usually a year, 2 years before you ever build. And so now you're stuck, you know, unless you have to go renegotiate the deal. And so it's making it more challenging. And now all the rents on new deals, I think we're up, you know, going 30 to 40%, like rents that I would have never thought were possible. That's all of a sudden it's happening. And so but
Right.
between land prices going up, it's a challenge for retail, for sure.
So I see a question that says, when are we getting our version of Gilbert's Heritage District?
That's city center.
All right, there you go. City Center, it's coming.
It's coming. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions going on? How has the City of Surprise model for economic development differed from other cities?
I'll let Mayor answer it, but from a developer perspective, proactive. I've never had a city so helpful in, hey, have you talked to these groups, or, you know, these folks reached out, and the surveys and just calling. There's several tenants that, like, I mean, I can't pay them a commission, but like, I probably should be paying them a commission versus our brokers for
Right.
bringing in those deals. And just with little things, I think so much of it is like, every city's different. Every city has a different process, has a different, you know, what's the pulse going on? I don't know what those residents think. And what I really like about what Surprise is doing is like, economic development is working on casting lines, but they're also managing the folks. What's a community thing? Or, hey, I need help. Like, I'm stuck in this planning process, and they're able to, like, they know how the sausage is made, and so they can help. And I think if you could replicate that in some other cities, I think that would be immensely helpful for economic development.
So Surprise is the easiest city to work with.
I would say so.
I think if I can add to that, I think what's so important about the Surprise Economic Development team is not only they're very skilled and they're very, very smart. It's that they've helped the city buy into a culture of economic development, that everybody's a part of economic development. And that starts with the mayor and council, the city manager, and they all buy into that. And Janine and her team and Mike Hoover are able to execute on that extraordinarily well. And they have great assets to work with, but they have a culture that is oriented towards making those big things happen.
Right. We're very intentional.
Which is the only way to be successful.
It really, I mean, we really are. And I'm blessed with a pretty good city council. I really am. I've got 7 people that are very, very business oriented. They want Surprise to be an economic engine and they want it to work. And when you say that and you back it up with action and you communicate that to the staff, we got an unbelievable staff.
Yeah.
And so it's just, it's great. It's great to be part of it. It really is. But it is intentional.
Yeah.
And when we bend over backwards for people that need things. I know Josh has got a hold of me a couple of times where he ran into a little wrinkle, and he'll text me and say, "Can you help me out?" I'm like, "Do my best to help him out." That's what
Teamwork.
we're a service organization.
Right. Right.
So we all have our roles, but we're all about service. So
Teamwork. Awesome. So Josh, I'm going to go back to you for cost again. So obviously we know materials are an issue, but also labor, right?
Mhm.
So labor, not only in the restaurants and service labor, but also in the trades. So how is that impacting?
Oh, it's very tough. I think it's stabilized now, but it depends on the project. And what you have happen is on jobs, you might lock in a certain sub and then they're losing their folks, right? And then costs are going up. And so there's this constant, like, nobody wants to keep their word, because whether it's the labor or, hey, I'm getting my materials are passed on, I need to pay my people more. So it's this constant churn. I do feel like it's stabilized a bit, but it's still extremely tough. And now with interest rates going up, and it needs to happen because there's way too much gasoline out there. And when you add $6 trillion to the US economy,
right.
things are going to get explosive real
Right,
quick.
right.
And so hopefully we can navigate that, kind of smooth landing. But I know, like, Phoenix in general, and then obviously Surprise is very well situated to take advantage of the next 5, 10, 20 years.
Phoenix is a sophisticated market now. It's there's so much capital flowing in, and we've got to understand that we're a sophisticated market and we've got to behave that way. And we're seeing that with the type of tenants that are approaching us on our other deals. We're certainly seeing that on the apartment guys that are coming into City Center and to Surprise Farms and everywhere else we're working on up in North Phoenix. It's a different market than it was 10 years ago. We are kind of the #1 target for out-of-state capital. And with that comes a lot of opportunity, but it's also a little sober. And we've got to understand how we fit into the not just the region, but frankly the world economy now. We're on the world stage.
Right.
So that's great, and I think Surprise is well positioned to take advantage of that.
And Senator, you mentioned time is money. Well, we have a new city manager. He came back.
I do. Bob, awesome guy.
Yeah, awesome. And we as a city council came to him and said, "You know what, Bob, we really need some help, because we're hearing a lot of people say it's taking too long to get things approved." Okay, so he said, "Okay, I'll go to work on it." And he went to work on it. And so we started getting staff to think, do we really need to do that? That eats up 30 days.
Mhm.
Can we get by with, jumping that? And there's a mindset. So he's getting the staff to think about, how can we shorten the process time? Because time is money. And so we're so glad to have him as our city manager center. It's just, you have a city manager that thinks like that, who has he understands money financially, and that these guys got things at risk. We're not at risk.
Right.
Okay. And so when you're at risk, there's a different timetable in your brain. Okay. And sure, we need to make sure our buildings are safe and all that. We get all that. But is there ways we can shorten the timeline?
Sure.
And we're so blessed to have a city manager that is on it.
Who gets it?
He gets it. Yes.
Yeah.
So-
Bob's a great guy. So you have in the middle of your community too, arts and culture. So this was one of the questions that came up
It's
is,
true.
tell us a little bit about that because that's a big amenity that people want, right? It
Right.
also sets the tone for a community too, and
Right.
have those amenities in there.
That's a good point, Senator, because we've got the West Valley Arts. It's right there by City Hall, so it's in the city center. And you're right, art is another level of sophistication in the
Right.
community that people want. Okay, and then we have the Vista Theater,
Yes.
which is just, it's really starting to get some momentum. You know, it hit COVID right after it opened. So that slowed it down, but it's starting to really come back. It's a 1,300 seat theater.
I
It's the
was,
largest venue in the West Valley.
I was just gonna say 1,300 seats. I know this.
You know, so I mean, that's gonna really be something.
Yeah.
And we as a city are sensitive to helping them build momentum. We just donated $45,000 to them last city council meeting through our tourism fund that we have, that comes out of the ed tax. And because we want them to succeed, and it's part of just what you're talking about, Senator, that near city center, big entertainment coming, you know, that can justify 1,300 seats.
Right.
We can't get Garth Brooks, but you know what I mean?
Right.
We can get some good country music.
Yeah.
I just got to notice that this comedian was a big hit last.
In Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
I
Anyway,
forget
he's
his name,
coming.
but anyway, yeah, I
Anyway,
saw that.
And then near city center, but it's in the original town site off of Dysart, is Wham,
Okay,
which is a
right.
great
Yes.
art organization. And they do super things. And they have poetry slams. And last Saturday I went to they had a recycling fashion show.
Oh,
So people dressed up in recycling material. All these girls did. Yeah, it was really something, but it's different.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And so, yeah, we really got that art movement going on. And it's great to see. People are really responding to it. And the more we build city center, the more that's going to play in, right? It just is.
well, just even walking around City Hall, that whole complex area, it's just beautiful with all the artwork.
Right.
So the
Yes,
city's
that too.
definitely done a great job at setting that feel,
Right.
that vibe.
Right.
So,
Yep.
all right, Scott, what else you got? Let's see if we have any questions in there.
Labor pool.
We're gonna fill time.
Somebody loves Janine. Who doesn't love
Yeah.
Janine?
Yes. Hey, he just said the comedian's name, Jim Brewer.
Jim Brewer, gotcha.
Yeah. Anyway,
On the labor pool, I think it's more, somebody asked about drawing more labor pool to Surprise. How many multifamily units are in Surprise?
right now, open,
Yeah.
renting, about 3,000.
Yeah, they probably double, triple that.
Yeah. We need
And I
triple.
think that's a big thing because there is an affordability issue in general. And if
Yes.
typically if you're at a restaurant or you're working retail, you might be living in an apartment. And until we can get those going, and the city's been super supportive of, more density in projects. And, there's definitely, and I don't know as much in the city, but and you see it in Scottsdale and Phoenix and the East Valley, is that NIMBYism. And you
Right.
want the pool there, you just don't want them to live next to it.
Right. Yeah,
And so
Yeah.
I think it's gonna take some time to build that, and that's why we're really, pushing the pedal on our multifamily project at Versada to get those, 550 units out of the ground as quickly as possible.
Great.
yeah, and you want the restaurants, but the density that's needed, you don't want that. So it is a whole education process.
It is.
It's actually, I would say it's even more than that. We're in a housing crisis scenario. We have a real problem. We're 25,000 units short across the valley today. We're 5,000 units short per year. The only way to correct this, it's a supply demand imbalance. The only way to correct it is to build more stuff.
Yep.
And we have to build all housing types, but the reality is, just because of where the available land is with water and sewer, we have to build more densely. Now, fortunately, at City Center, we have the entitlements. We can go 15 stories. We can build dense product across the site. In fact, I think we can do, I think we figured we can actually do 30,000 units across the entire city center if that's just what we did. It's not what we're going to do here, but just so we can. But that's not just isolated in Surprise. And in order to correct some of the imbalance on the the jobs available and the workforce. We just have to have the housing.
Well, you have with Luke Air Force Base to the south, you're kind of, you can't build anything down there
Right.
from residential because of noise contours and safety. And so that's why you've seen the industrial sprout out up the 303. And so really you have a smaller area now to put that density. And so
Right.
that's even more important.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And by the way, I don't know if you know Senator, but Surprise has the most Arab men and Arab women
I did not know.
of the West Valley. We have 19%.
Wow. I'm not.
Glendale was second at 17%. So everybody thinks they live in Glendale. No, 19% of them live in Surprise.
Wow. I thought they lived in Goodyear. I did. Goodyear and Litchfield Park, I thought that's what it was. Let's see, there's another question here. As the city becomes built out, are there any considerations for public transportation? To move around in the area?
Yes, there is. We're working on it, and Jody Tass is very involved with the legislature and MAG on this. We're trying to get funding for a bus line that goes down Bell Road. It comes out of Arrowhead, because Arrowhead is where you hook into the grid
Right.
of Maricopa
Right.
County. So working on that. We're also working on, and you know, money is always
Sure.
a challenge. Okay,
Sure.
so there's resource strategy. So, but we're working on a circular, we call it circular in the city, and to do half-hour stops at 14 different locations in Surprise. It's going to take about $1.5 million a year to fund that. And so, you know, we just got to make sure that we do it at the right time. And because we got some roads we need to do.
Right.
We need to build another pool and, you know, those kind of things. So, but it's on the list.
But what's interesting is you look at the greater density that's coming in, what Josh is doing on the 303, what we're working on at City Center, and then what TSMC's influence is on the 303, the gravity changes for residents of Surprise.
It does.
So having the flexibility to adjust with that gravity changing, I think it's obviously we know it's been on your drawing board for a long time, and just trying to find the right mix of how do we get the people where they want to go.
Right.
It's going to be more defined on where people want to go.
Right.
And that's just as a result of becoming more mature, more sophisticated, and having more areas built.
Right. Yeah, I used to be in the hotel restaurant business.
Uh-huh.
I didn't own them, I managed them. But when we do landscaping in a new hotel, we wouldn't build the pathways. We'd wait for the residents to tell us where they were walking, and then we built. Because sure enough, all of a sudden, if you put grass there, they'll cut a corner. And all of a sudden, there won't be any
No
grass.
more grass.
It's like you knew the question that was coming up. There was a
What?
question that says, are developers making plans to keep the buildings and landscaping aesthetically pleasing enough add enough open space along with parking to prevent congestion as growth comes? I would say, before you guys answer this question, I'm gonna give my take on this.
Go for it.
Every time I drive to Surprise, it is amazingly beautiful. And I remember years ago when I worked there, the former city manager of Glendale came out to Surprise and drove Sun Valley Parkway, drove Bell Road and Sun Valley Parkway,
Uh-huh.
and said, oh my God, I had no idea this area was so beautiful. So I think it's beautiful. So what are you guys doing? I mean, obviously you're doing something right.
Yeah.
You're working with developers.
Well, I'll start that because I think, you know, our mantra in Surprise, as city council, is clean, safe, friendly. That's our priorities. Now, there's a lot, you know,
Yeah.
to make that happen, but we want to remain very clean, very safe, and very friendly. Not only friendly to each other, but friendly to businesses coming in. Okay, through, you know, our economic development department handles all the ribbon cuttings now, all the businesses. I was at about 25 of them last year.
Oh, wow.
Personally, I made sure I made it.
Right.
Because if I'm there, then they know, wow, the mayor's here. They must really want businesses to succeed.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So that's one thing. We have a litter program. Our Surprise Youth Council is involved in a litter program. And so our residents, it's kind of the Disneyland concept of cleanliness.
Mhm.
where
see
when
it.
you're at this, when you're at Disneyland,
Yeah.
if there's a cup on the ground, it doesn't last there very long.
Right.
Somebody, boom, they're picking it up, right?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with cleanliness in the city. If you're intentional about it and everybody's looking at cleaning it up and we have fast food, a lot of times we have to go to the fast food operator and say, hey, can you help us out?
Yeah.
I'll tell you one operator we've never had to talk to is In-N-Out. They have a guy outside, don't they, Scott?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that place is like.
That used to be me in high school.
Really?
That was the In-N-Out.
No, I mean, because it's important, and they get it.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's and, we have street sweepers,
Oh, you're doing it right.
big time street sweeping, so it's yeah, we're proud of that. We want to keep it that way, no matter how big we get.
But what's interesting about congestion is because, a lot of people, they want the high-end steakhouse and they want the great entertainment venues and what those require are a lot of people. And so we did 22 outreach meetings in the public when we updated our master plan in 2019. And it was great. I mean, we had such great input, but you always hear things like, well, I want a Mastro's, but I want to be able to park right next to it. And I want, high-end stuff, but I don't want to have to fight people to get in there. Well, we're going to be a congested place. There's a lot of people moving in.
Right.
On the other side of the white tanks, there's going to be 1 million people living there. It's a growth market. We want it to be a growth market. Mayor, one of the things that I really appreciate about doing business in Surprise, and frankly, most of West Valley cities, is there's a recognition of private property rights.
Right.
So even the White Tanks Conservancy that is really concerned about making sure that mountain stays alive is interested in doing it based upon working with property owners and finding
That's right.
win-win situations. So all these people moving in from Oregon and Washington and California, I think it's really important they understand that private property rights are embedded in the Arizona Constitution and that councils care about that. And that's one of the reasons why they come here, is because we have an element of freedom that you don't get in places in California. California can't build new stuff because their process is so mired in government bureaucracy.
Right.
It's critical that Arizona maintain a level of freedom for private property, and that's everybody's private property. So I would say this idea of congestion, yeah, it's coming and it's going to get worse. Let's just be very realistic. But that's how we get the cool restaurants and that's how we get the cool venues. Is we need more people. But as far as cleanliness and open space and that planning, Surprise has done a great job on the general plan, identifying those areas and saying, we're going to be committed to these long-term, because those are quality of life initiatives that are part of economic development and part of the reason why people want to stay there.
And I agree with you on the congestion. I mean, I'm definitely seeing it and experiencing it a lot more, but I also know that more and more things are opening up in my community. So, we want the good things and the bad stuff comes
And you
along.
look at like Persada out along the 303, the planning of the streets. There's not a curb cut every 200 feet, right? Although I'd love one as a developer. I get it. And so I would say going forward, congestion, you guys are designing a smart city going forward. And so versus if you look at old Arrowhead, that is a true traffic planner's probably nightmare.
And you can't take away the curb cuts
Nope.
after they've been in.
Private property rights.
Yes.
Awesome.
No, that's right.
Well, this has been a great discussion. We got into a lot of different areas because it all comes together.
It does.
And so all of a sudden, we find ourselves at Westmark in the affordable housing discussion, because it all comes back to workforce. It all comes back to, filling the restaurants, all of this it's part of our ecosystem. So any last thoughts that you would want people to know?
I guess just emphasizing that City Center at Surprise, we've been working on it 27 years. And someday people are going to wake up and go, man, that just came out of nowhere. And we'll say, yeah, overnight success, 30 years in the making.
I will not say that.
But we have the ability to go 15 stories. We can build 33 million square feet. So if you look at that as really a focal point among all the other great things that are happening in Surprise, we believe it serves a purpose, and that's a mission for us. And I believe it's a mission for the city to make sure that becomes a focal point and a model for the 21st century city going forward.
And I would say Surprise, the city of Surprise is part of the West Valley. And we as mayors cities in the West Valley. We're pretty tight. And we have dinner once a month. We communicate a lot because we realize that what's good for Peoria can also be good for Surprise and vice versa. Okay, and what's good for Goodyear is good for Surprise, et cetera. So we're very complimentary of each other. We help each other when we can because West Valley, it's West Valley's time.
Yes.
It really is. You know that.
Yeah.
You know, the East Valley, they've done a great job, and but they're getting to a place where they can't grow anymore.
Right.
And so the West Valley's where it's at.
Yep.
And these two guys are really going to make it happen. Surprise.
Agreed.
I would just say patience, although you said 30 years, just things don't happen tomorrow too.
Right.
So, you know,
30 months, you got 30 months.
30 months.
You got 30 months.
So patience would be my.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. Thank you to Scott, Mayor Hall, and Josh for being with us today. This is a great discussion and top of mind for everyone. So appreciate you all attending and participating. This will be on our website. So if you missed it or if there's information that you want to share with others, please just go to our website, westmark.org, and it's under our, I believe, resources page, or KJ will drop it in the chat. And you can replay this and send it out. So our next topic is, I believe it's going to be on affordable housing, and it is in 2 months. So stay tuned and join us then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cedric.
That was fantastic.